Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to unpack today's news with some philosophical twists?
Always up for a good thought experiment.
We've got a pretty interesting mix of sources today. We've got the usual suspects, The Guardian, Daily News.
Oh, and those blogs I love.
Yeah, exactly. Philosophy Bits, Reason and Meaning, just to name a couple.
It's amazing how these different voices, from mainstream news to more niche outlets, they all grapple with these timeless philosophical questions.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. The Guardian has this piece on the Finnish concept of sisu. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating. Like this deep well of resilience, right? The Finns are known for it.
Yeah. They describe it as this strength and determination to push through tough times. Not just gritting your teeth and bearing it, but using creativity and resourcefulness to kind of overcome those obstacles. What are your thoughts on this concept?
Well, it definitely challenges that common, I guess, understanding of resilience as this passive endurance. Sisu suggests a more proactive approach.
A spirit of innovation in the face of adversity.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, thinking about all the challenges we see in the news today.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think sisu is something that can be learned? Or is it just, unique to Finnish culture?
That's a great question. The article actually mentions that the Estonian word for sisu has a slightly different meaning. It focuses more on inner strength and substance.
Interesting. So maybe it's less about specific actions and more about a mindset.
Right. Maybe we can all tap into that sisu spirit, regardless of our background. Kind of encouraging, right?
I think so, definitely.
Especially when we look at some of the, well, more disheartening news. We found this blog post on economic mobility, and it paints a pretty bleak picture. The author basically argues that upward mobility is more myth than reality for many, despite, that whole American dream narrative we hear so much about.
Right, and they go on to argue that it's actually systemic barriers like access to education and healthcare that play a much bigger role than individual effort in determining one's life trajectory.
It really makes a question if we're truly in control of our own destinies.
It does, and this quote from Thomas Paine that we found on Philosophy Bits seems really relevant here. I care not how affluent some may be, provided that none be miserable in consequence of it.
Such a powerful statement.
Right. It really highlights that ethical dilemma of wealth inequality.
And it's a question that's still so relevant, centuries later. Does the success of some really come at the expense of others?
Tough question.
Really complex issue with no easy answers. Now, let's shift gears a bit. There's been a lot of buzz online about what it actually means to be a philosopher in today's world. We found some pretty interesting viewpoints on this from Philosophy by the Day and Daily News.
Yeah, it seems like these sources are really wrestling with the role of philosophy in a world that's becoming more and more focused on, practicality.
Philosophy, by the way, analyzes this quote from Jürgen Habermas.
Oh, interesting.
He's a very well-known philosopher sociologist, and he actually expresses hesitation to fully embrace the title of philosopher.
Why is that?
Well, he feels his work is more about, improving the world rather than just pondering these abstract concepts.
Ah, I see. So is there room for both, detached contemplation and active engagement?
Right. That seems to be the core of the debate.
It is.
Daily News even has this post about summer jobs for philosophy professors, when they're not teaching.
Okay, interesting.
The suggestions range from, research grants to get this ethical hacking. It's a far cry from that, stereotypical image of the philosopher lost in thought.
It is. Maybe these diverse skills, these applications, reflect a broader shift in the field. Like philosophers are starting to apply their critical thinking to a much wider range of things.
That's a really fascinating observation. It does seem like philosophy is breaking free from that, ivory tower and venturing out into the real world.
Yeah.
But does that mean they're completely abandoning those big existential questions, about the meaning of life and all that?
I don't think so. Reason and Meaning summarizes Sean Carroll's work. He's a physicist who delves into the philosophical implications of his field.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exploring how our understanding of the universe, physics, shapes our views on free will and our search for meaning.
So even as philosophers are engaging with these more practical, real-world issues, those fundamental questions are still very much at the core of their work.
It seems that way, yeah. Like they're trying to bridge that gap between the theoretical and the practical.
And in doing so, maybe making philosophy more accessible, more relevant to our daily lives.
Exactly.
Speaking of understanding the world, we have this super thought-provoking quote from Aldous Huxley on Philosophy Bits. He argues that our economic, social, even international arrangements are based on what he calls organized lovelessness. What do you make of that?
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Right.
He seems to be suggesting that our systems, the way we've structured things, are actually built on exploitation and domination.
leading to a disconnect from our own humanity.
Exactly. It's a pretty stark critique of modern society.
It is, and it makes you think, especially considering the news today, is Huxley just offering doom and gloom? Or is there, some kind of solution to this organized lovelessness?
I mean, he doesn't lay out a step-by-step plan, but his words definitely feel like a call to action, you
A
know?
radical shift in values.
Right. He urges us to reconsider our relationship with nature, art, each other, to prioritize love and cooperation over, domination and exploitation.
It's a tall order, but his critique raises some really important questions about where our society is headed.
Absolutely.
Philosophy Bits also explores this concept of responsibility. They argue that wrongdoing is very rarely the fault of just one person.
That's a good point. It reminds us that we're all interconnected. Our actions have ripple effects.
So it's not about pointing fingers, but understanding that web of factors that contribute to harmful actions.
Right, a more nuanced approach to accountability.
And this quote from Judith Butler, also on Philosophy Bits, really gets to the heart of what it means to be human. She argues that how we treat others, especially those we see as different or threatening, is a true test of our humanity.
So relevant in today's world, where divisions and prejudices are often amplified. It's a call for, a broader compassion, recognizing the inherent dignity of all individuals.
It is a powerful reminder that our humanity isn't defined by our differences, but by our capacity for empathy and understanding. And on that note, let's take a quick pause before we jump into the final segment of our deep dive.
Sounds good. We've covered a lot, but there's still so much to explore. We were talking about philosophy's expanding role, in everyday life. Let's look at one specific example, artificial intelligence.
You brought up AI-generated art earlier. It raises some really interesting ethical and philosophical questions, right? Like, can a machine even create art? After dinner conversation is using AI to generate descriptions. Things like vases of flowers, but in the style of famous authors.
Like Hemingway and Shakespeare.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. It makes you think about creativity. Can we even call AI creative? I mean, it's basically just mimicking human works.
True, but it's still generating something new, even if it's based on existing patterns. Maybe it's a form of artificial creativity. It really makes you question what art and authorship even mean anymore.
Yeah, it's a real philosophical puzzle. And as AI keeps advancing, we're going to have to keep grappling with these questions about authorship and originality. It's like the lines between human and artificial creativity are getting blurrier and blurrier.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit. You mentioned earlier that there's this resurgence of interest in ancient wisdom. How is that showing up today?
Well, the Indian philosophy blog has this great piece that draws on Buddhist philosophy to promote a more embodied understanding of emotions. They're basically saying we need to move beyond seeing emotions as purely mental states.
We need to recognize how our physical sensations play a role in how we feel.
Exactly. It's like when you feel your heart racing when you're anxious or a tightness in your chest when you're sad.
It makes a lot of sense. So this blog is suggesting a more holistic view of emotions.
Right. Mind and body are interconnected, and it actually has some practical implications for how we deal with difficult emotions. Instead of suppressing them, maybe we should be paying more attention to our bodily sensations.
And developing strategies for regulating those responses.
Things like mindfulness and movement can be really helpful.
It's amazing how these ancient philosophies offer such timeless wisdom. We can still use it today to navigate all the complexities of human experience.
For sure. And it's not just Buddhist philosophy. Philosophical Guidance has this piece exploring Hindu concepts of ultimate reality and the meaningful life. It's offering fresh perspectives on, the nature of existence, the search for purpose.
Those big questions. In a world that's often dominated by technology and breaking news, it's really heartening to see a renewed interest in these enduring philosophical questions. Like we're yearning for deeper meaning and connections to something bigger than ourselves.
It speaks to the power of philosophy, doesn't it? It helps us make sense of the world and our place in it. And it gives us frameworks for dealing with those complex issues.
This deep dive has definitely highlighted all those different ways philosophy intersects with our lives and the news we consume. It's been an enriching journey, so we've explored some really fascinating connections between philosophy and current events. From Finnish sisu to the ethics of AI, it's clear that philosophical thinking can really offer valuable insights into how we navigate our world.
It's been a great discussion exploring how these philosophical concepts can help us understand ourselves and the world around us.
As we wrap up our deep dive today, I'd like to turn our focus back to you, the listener. We've covered a lot, ancient wisdom to cutting-edge tech, but the biggest takeaway is how these ideas resonate with you personally.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty of philosophy, right? It sparks self-reflection. It encourages us to really examine our own beliefs and values.
Think back to what we've discussed today, the power of sisu and overcoming challenges the ethical dilemmas of economic inequality, the role of philosophy in addressing those real-world issues. Which ideas stood out to you the most?
Maybe this conversation has inspired you to think about how you can cultivate that sisu mindset in your own life. Face challenges head on with resilience and resourcefulness.
Or maybe it sparked a deeper awareness of those systemic barriers we talked about and a desire to advocate for greater social justice.
It could even be a newfound appreciation for the wisdom of those ancient traditions and their relevance to our modern lives.
Whatever you're taking away from our conversation today, we encourage you to carry it forward. Apply these philosophical perspectives to your own experiences and your interactions with the world.
Remember, philosophy isn't just an academic exercise. It's a living, breathing way of engaging with life's big questions. It's about searching for meaning in a world that's constantly evolving.
We hope this deep dive has empowered you to think critically, challenge assumptions, and embrace the richness of human thought. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Until next time, stay curious.